Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. For the invocation and following the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to recognize Pastor Carter, who's with us today. So if you're willing and able, please stand.
Great to be able to be here today and to be able to pray for everybody virtually. So let's pray together. Oh, Father in heaven, I just thank you so much for the place and the people of Wichita. God, I thank you so much that even in times of difficulty, God, times of uncertainty, Lord, we can have hope in you, that you're greater than any circumstance, difficulty, pandemic that we can ever face. And so as we come to you today, God, we pray for all the first responders, God, frontline workers that are in our community, just doing so much. And we just thank you so much for their model of sacrificial service. God, we pray as well today as our city has been reopening, that you would give wisdom, you'd give direction to our business leaders. God, as they navigate so many different new frontiers, Lord, that we're living in. And God, I just pray today, especially, God, for our mayor and our city commissioners. Lord, I just thank you so much for their work, God, for their leadership. Lord, I just know that the weight of leadership so many times is heavy. And I just pray for them today, God, that you would lighten their load. And God, I just pray for them today that you would give them wisdom, you give them direction as they discuss the matters at hand. And so we pray all these things right now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proclamations first or approval of the minutes first? Proclamation, right. Thank you, Pastor. All right, so we have two proclamations that I'm going to read here, and then we're going to mail them to the people who normally would be here to pick them up. Obviously, we don't have anyone here because we are socially distancing and trying to keep City Hall as safe as possible. So the first one is to recognize Public Service Recognition Week. So with that, proclamation of the City of Wichita, founded in 1870, whereas during Public Service Recognition Week, we acknowledge our nation's civil servants for their hard work and willingness to serve their fellow citizens. The contributions of these dedicated men and women strengthen our community and make a profound difference in the lives of all Americans. And whereas members of the federal, state, and local workforces bring incredible skills, tireless dedication, and selfless service to the broad range of career fields, and whereas every day our national civil servants help make America better, safer, and stronger. This week, we honor their efforts and extend our gratitude for their exceptionalism and steadfast commitment to serving the American people. And whereas Americans and the federal, state, tribal, and local government agencies to recognize the dedication of our nation's public servants and to observe this week through appropriate programs and activities. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim May 3rd through the 9th, 2020 as Public Service Recognition Week, and call upon the people of Wichita to acknowledge the importance of our legal and judicial systems and encourage schools, businesses, media, religious institutions, civic and service organizations to join members of the bar and bench in commemorating Public Service Recognition Week. The second proclamation read today, which will be mailed afterwards, is to recognize National Small Business Week. It's a proclamation of the City of Wichita, founded in 1870, whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstone of our nation's promise. And whereas because the country's 28 million small business create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through a U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the City of Wichita supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim May 3rd through the 9th, 2020 as National Small Business Week, and call upon the people of Wichita and service organizations to join members of the bar and bench in commemorating National Small Business Week. All right, Madam Clerk.
Approve the minutes of regular meeting on April 28th, 2020.
Has every member had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any proposed discussion or amendments to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 11.
Are there any discussion on the consent agenda items 1 through 11? See none. With that, I move to accept consent agenda items 1 through 11.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion on the motion? See none. With that, the clerk will open up the roll. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated May 4th, 2020.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Hannah Lang, Department of Finance, here to present the May 4th Board of Bid recommendations. The first engineering bid we have is 2020 OP3 Joint and Crack Seal Phase 4. Recommendation is deferred to May 11th Board of Bids. 2020 C-Clip K15 KTA Bridge KDOT, defer to May 18th. Hess Pump Station Valve Replacement, Domlinger and Sons, Group 1, $2,940,590. Group 2, $6,000 for a bid total of $2,946,590. Water Distribution System to serve Casabella 2nd Edition, Mies Construction for Groups 1 and 2 for a bid total of $111,138. Stormwater Drain number 454 to serve RF Edition. Recommendation is Mies Construction for $475,000. Stormwater Sewer number 737 to serve Harvey's Walnut Grove and Julia Edition. Recommendation is Domlinger and Sons Construction for $53,645. Madison and Murdoch Water Main Replacement, Mies Construction for $362,810. First purchasing bid we have is main and gutter brooms for street sweepers, defer to May 11th. Track mounted mini excavator, fully equipment for base bid of $98,208 with option 2 of $1,491. Grounds maintenance at landfills, defer to May 11th Board of Bids. Here's our current request for proposals that are open, as well as the purchasing's procurement website. With that, we recommend the approval of the bid awards as recommended. That'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions or comments on the item? See none. With that, I will make a motion to take staff's recommended action to receive and file the report, approve the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded by the vice mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing and modification of incentive agreement, tax exemption request, Martin Enterprise, LLC.
Good morning, Mayor. Scott Rigby, City Manager's Office, here to
Morning,
discuss Martin Interconnect. Just a little background about Martin Interconnect. They are a company that focuses on custom wiring assemblies, principally for recreational vehicles and boats. They're currently located at 3001 East Harry. That's near the Harry and George Washington Boulevard intersection. And they're within the advanced manufacturing sector regional growth plan. Their previous facility before they moved to this current facility in 2018 was in a 30,000 square foot facility. When they acquired the new facility at 3001 East Harry, that they moved into a 156,000 square foot facility, so quite a bit of expansion. And part of the original EDX, or Economic Development Exemption, they committed to doing $1.8 million worth of facilities and M&E, or mechanical and equipment upgrades to that facility. One of the interesting additional items Martin Interconnect is known for is their focus on providing job opportunities for those who maybe be underskilled or either coming out of the criminal justice system or maybe new immigrants to our community. And those are often stepping stone jobs. As they take these jobs within Martin Connect takes efforts to train and continue to improve their skills, whether they continue on at Martin Interconnect or also encourage them to move onward and upward into other jobs within the community. Here's a photo of the location at 3001 East Harry. Just a little background, back in 2018, the city and Martin agreed to an economic development exemption for the facility. In that agreement at that time, the approved agreement abated the building and their improvements, but not the land. However, come to find out later on that Martin Interconnect understood that it would also include the land, and they reached back out to the city to explore the misunderstanding. Once staff took the time to review the process of approval that was approved back in 2018, staff did find an error and not clearly stating that the abatement would only include the building. And we went through the process of improving our processes to make sure that would not occur. We've taken a number of additional actions since finding that error to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. One of them we talked about just last week was in our current economic development policy guidelines, where previously stated that it wasn't clear whether or not land could or could not be exempted. We have proposed in the new guidelines, as discussed last week, that now would state that land would not be considered for any abatement. In addition, staff is taking steps to revise all its applications, industrial revenue bond, economic development exemption, cost benefit forms, and incentive agreements to directly state that land is not an eligible abatement option. And then lastly, when processing any applications and submitting agenda reports and council presentations, at least 2 staff members will now review to ensure compliance with all rules and regs. Once we found that error, we went back to Martin Interconnect and updated our review of the company. The company at the time of the EDX had approximately 220 employees at the time. Since the 2018, part of the requirement was to acquire and purchase and improve the building, which they've done, which is that $1.8 million worth of capital improvements. They have committed over the course of the 10-year process to hire 150 new jobs to date. They have added 26 new jobs. Obviously, the COVID has impacted that growth, but they feel still confident about that process. As you'll see, the average wage is a little bit lower than our standard wage threshold, but this is part of the effort. When we considered Martin Interconnect back in 2018, this was deemed an exception because of the unique job hiring that they do. We felt this is an additional benefit to the community. This is often referred to, as we went through the process last week with the retreat, that the additional considerations as we move forward with the new guidelines, that the council would be able to take into impact the qualitative value of a company, as whether they do hiring of underage or people with maybe challenged backgrounds, that they would also, instead of being an exception, be considered a value to the community. So in our process, we reviewed the impact, went back to WSU and had them do an updated cost benefit analysis. And with the addition of the land abatement, here's the value of the annual abatement. And with the cost benefit analysis, you'll still see the cost benefit analysis is in excess of the standard 1.3 to 1 ratio. You'll see the city of Wichita 3.1 to 1, general fund 2.47, and on down the list. So significantly above the original threshold of 1.3, even with the abatement of the land. Consequently, to correct the staff error, staff is requesting the land now be included in the abatement. And the staff is also requesting the city to reimburse the land taxes paid to date through the city's economic development fund, which is roughly valued at $16,600. Therefore, is the recommendation that the city council close the public hearing, place on the first reading the ordinance granting Martin Interconnect Enterprises LLC a 100% tax exemption for land and building, and approve reimbursing Martin for land property taxes abated to date. With that, I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions on the item? Chair recognizes Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Scott, can you tell us, have they lived up to all their other commitments in the agreement?
Mayor, Councilmember Blueball, they have made the capital improvements to the building. They're on their way for the job hiring. They've hired 26 to date. They actually have more job openings, but due to the COVID, they've had to suspend those at this time, but they intend to pick that back up once the COVID situation starts to ease.
What's the total number? What's the total number of employees they're supposed to hire?
Over the course of the 5 and 10-year review, it's 150 new employees.
Okay, and
how 26.
How long do they have to complete that? The whole 5 years, or?
At the 5 years, so 2023 will be their standard 5-year review. So at that point, they have agreed they will have hired up to 150 new people for the company.
Okay, so normally we don't do land. Is that correct? We just are because we had an administrative issue?
Correct.
Do we have any other companies where we had the same administrative issue? Or is this the only one that we know of?
To date, we have not.
Okay. We don't know of any others coming up either?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, at agenda review on Friday, I asked a question about the ROI and that WSU had performed a new analysis with this change. But when I look back at the original action in January 18, the ROI was at 2.54 to 1, and now it's saying it's a 3.08 to 1 with this additional abatement. How is that possible that the ROI goes up when we're losing tax revenue?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Fry, I asked that same question. We went back to WSU and did the update. And what they did is they did a more accurate assessment of the improvements to the building versus the value of the land. And they actually brought down the value of the improvements that they estimated originally within the building. Even though it was $1.8 million, the WSU had to apply a higher ratio of improvements to the building to the value of the land. But in this new process, with the updated numbers, they actually reduced the valuation of the building improvements to the value of the land, and that actually increased the cost benefit value.
Okay, but it's hindsight, it's after the fact, right? So they were able to help clean it up.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion on the item? See none. With that, the chair recognizes the council member from District 3, Councilmember Clendenin, for a motion.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I want to just thank staff for working on this. When it was brought to our attention, I know to Martin Interconnect it seems like a decade probably, and especially right now, the business decision they made to go forward with this building based on the information they had. And I just want to commend staff actually for going back and making the correction and taking other actions to make sure that things don't happen again. You guys do an amazing job, and we're appreciative of all you do. I also want to say that Martin Interconnect, I want to thank them for hanging with us and continuing to provide the service that they provide to the community. They do not have to hire the people that they hire. Their lives would be much easier, but they have an affinity for people, and they really want to see the community do better, and those that need a second chance or third chance to have that as well. So that being said, I'd like to make a motion to take the staff's recommended action. The City Council close the public hearing, place on first reading the ordinance granting Martin Enterprises LLC 100% tax exemption for land and building, except for any capital outlay levy assessed by the local school district on the identified real property improvements for a 5-year term, plus 100% tax exemption, except for any capital outlay levy assessed by the local school districts for a second 5-year term, subject to City Council review and authorize the necessary signatures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Discussion on said motion. See none, clerk will open the rolls. Members cast their vote. The result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing for a project plan, tax increment financing for the project area 3B plan.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Mark Elder with the Office of Economic Development. The item before you today is the public hearing to consider a project plan for the redevelopment of the Chester Lewis Reflection Park, which is in project area 3B within the Center City South redevelopment district. Center City South was originally established in 2007, and with that, there are 13 different areas that are identified as project areas within that district. Currently, we have 3 projects with Exchange Place, Block 1, and the NAFSCR Park project. The map here shows the extent of the Center City South TIF district with those project areas, as well as shows you a reference to where project area 3B is within that district. And then now this is a close-up of where project area 3B is. It's along Douglas and Broadway, and you'll see there that there are some project areas that are hashed, which are excluded from the project area. Those are due to a property tax abatement within those, and so therefore they cannot be within that project area. The private development that will be contributing to the funding for the project area is a $75 million conversion of the former state office building to the Kansas Health Science Center, the former Sutton building into 119 units of student housing that will be supporting that Health Science Center, as well as the former Broadway Plaza will be converted into a 119-room AC Marriott Hotel. And finally, the former Henry's building, which is on the southeast corner outside of this project area, but still within the developer's project, will be converted into a commercial kitchen and culinary school. The TIF project, where the funds will be going into, would be to make improvements to the Chester I. Lewis Reflection Park. Primarily with the funds available, they'll be constructing updates, repairing and replacing pavers, opening up the park for a gathering space, but they will be retaining the historic and cultural elements of that park. With this, there is also contemplation to acquire a portion of land to the east of the park for an expansion. There currently is a building there that would be demolished. A portion that would be retained by the developer, the remaining portion be acquired by the city to make these improvements to the park. There would also be supporting infrastructure within the project area if that funds are available. As far as the park project is concerned, the process is going to be led by a committee that's comprised of community stakeholders. There will be public engagement on the redesign of the park, and the entire design and construction would be coordinated and timed with the Kansas Health Science Construction to make sure that those open near the same time and do not interfere with each other's projects. With the use of the tax increment financing, the project plan contemplates $1.3 million in TIF increment bonds. Those will be guaranteed by the developer, and they will be used for the redevelopment of the park and to acquire that portion of land to the east. The project plan also identifies about $1 million of pay-as-you-go funding. This revenue is identified as anything excess of more than what is needed to pay for the bonds. We identify those as pay-as-you-go financing. So if the project is meeting or exceeding the obligations of the $1.3 million issued in debt, then the additional funds could be used to pay for supporting public infrastructure that is within that project area. This is an image of the park as it exists today. And as well as we have a few concept-only images that were provided. But again, this will go through a public process and design and for public input. And then here's kind of an overhead view of what that park would look like. With that, the staff would recommend that you close the public hearing and place on first reading the ordinance establishing the Project Area 3B plan. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Comments or questions on the item? See none. With that, the chair will recognize the council member from District 1, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. By the way, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I believe you all received an email from the downtown development in support of this project, and I thought maybe it'd be important for you to put that into the record. It came last evening to you from Jason Gregory, and if you want, we can attach that as part of the record. It's in support of the project.
So is there any objection to attaching said email from the manager and comments to the record and having a clerk note it in the minutes? See no objection. Thank you. The chair once again recognizes Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Bob, for that, too. I'm looking forward to getting to work with Troy and community stakeholders on what a improved Chester Lewis Reflection Park could look like. It's an exciting project, as well as everything else going on with this development. So I'm looking forward to that. With that, I would move that the City Council close the public hearing, place on the first reading the ordinance adopting Project Area 3B plan, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there's no discussion on the said motion, then clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing on proposed assessments for 24 paving projects, 21 water projects, 21 sewer projects, and 12 storm sewer projects in the September 2020 bond sale series 826.
Excellent. Welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering, excuse me. The item before you this morning is a public hearing on proposed special assessments for 78 total projects in the bond sale anticipated for September of 2020. The City Council was notified on February 25th that the proposed assessment rolls were on file for public inspection in the Department of Finance. The notice of the hearings was published February 28th, and all affected property owners were notified in writing. Staff from the Department of Finance and the Engineering Division of Public Works and Utilities held an informal hearing on March 9th. 3 citizens were in attendance, and staff felt as if they were able to effectively answer all questions. All projects within the bond sale were signed by 100% of the property owners within the respective benefit district for each project. Statements of special assessment will be mailed on May 15th, pending City Council approval today. Property owners then have 30 days to pay and avoid interest. Otherwise, the special assessments will be placed on the 2021 tax roll at the bond interest rate from the sale. The total proposed Bond sale for the 78 projects is just under $16 million. Staff recommends that the council approve the proposed assessment and place the ordinances on first reading, and I will stand for any questions.
Questions on the item? See none. With that, I will make a motion to accept the recommended action to close the public hearing, approve the proposed assessments, and place the ordinance on first read. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the vice mayor. If no discussion on the motion, the clerk will open the rolls. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Tourism Business Improvement District 2021, scope of services.
Morning, Mayor Whipple, members of the Wichita City Council.
Welcome.
Assistant City Manager Dante Martin, here to present the 2021 Tourism Business Improvement District 2021 Scope of Services and Budget. Along with me is Susie Santo, President and CEO of Visit Wichita. She'll discuss in detail 2019 performance, 2020 goals, and planning for 2021. In 2014, City Council adopted an ordinance creating the Tourism Business Improvement District. The district's boundaries are the legal limits of the city. Upon approval of the ordinance, the City Council entered a contract with Visit Wichita to market Wichita to leisure and group visitors, drive hotel demand, and enhance Wichita's image as a destination. Visit Wichita receives annual funding from the City of Wichita for the promotion of tourism and convention activities. In accordance with the Kansas Business Improvement District statute, the proposed 2021 scope of services and budget is presented to the City Council annually for approval. The 2021 scope of service and budget outlines strategies and budget allocations for leisure marketing and group sales activities to drive visitation to Wichita. The 2021 scope of services and budget outlines how the funds received from a nightly hotel room fee will be used to promote tourism during 2021. With that, I'll turn it over to Susie to give us a deeper dive into 2019 performance, 2020 revised goals, and 2021 planning.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Members. Susie Santo, 515 South Main Street, Wichita, Kansas. Before I discuss the 2021 TBID scope of services, I wanted to take just a moment and highlight 2019. As a note, the data on the next 3 slides can also be found in your agenda packet. First, from an incremental room nights perspective, we achieved our incremental room night goal of leisure visitors with just over 138,000. And on the group side, we achieved 98% of the goal with 15,619 incremental room nights. As we take a deeper dive into the leisure performance, the economic impact was over 71 million. And regarding the return of investment, it was 64-1. For every dollar spent, drove $64 in economic impact back into the community. We were quite pleased with this result, as increasing the ROI was one of the goals from the TBID Advisory Council for 2019. This surpassed not only the ROI of 2018, but also our 2019 goal. In regards to the group business, the economic impact was 5.6 million and return on investment was $7.90 to every $1 spent. This is also an all-time high for ROI on the group side of the business. Overall, 2019 was a strong year with both hotel occupancy and hotel demand up 4.6% to prior year. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about what's happened since. We started 2020 with strong performance as hotel revenue was up in January and February about 8% to prior year. And we knew hotels were poised to have a very strong March. And then COVID-19 hit. As everyone has been impacted by this pandemic, the travel and tourism industry has taken a significant, unprecedented hit. As we take a quick look at the impact, this will lead us into our budgeting process for 2021. As an industry, it is estimated the impact of this pandemic will be more than 7 times that of 9/11. And since we put this slide in, it's been revised, and I believe it's close to 9 times. with over $900 billion in total economic loss. So in Wichita, we have seen 7 hotels temporarily suspend operations. Pleased that in recent conversations yesterday, it looks like mid-May we'll begin to see those come back online. At Visit Wichita, we have shifted our focus and have placed programmatic marketing efforts on hold. We have been and continue to be focused on helping our industry partners remain strong. We've done that through our social media efforts, encourage residents to utilize carryout, purchase season passes for our attractions, purchase gift cards, shop locally online from our many retailers, as well as we've been highlighting those organizations and partners doing outstanding things during this pandemic. In addition, we have served as an information source regarding the CARES Act, all the CARES Act information. Again, this is to ensure our industry partners are utilizing every resource available to them during this very difficult time. And as Wichita begins to reopen and recovery begins, we know our marketing efforts will be critical to let visitors know Wichita is open for business, we're safe for business, and we welcome you back. This will jumpstart the local and national travel industry efforts. This slide projects hotel revenue on a national level. It was conducted by Tourism Economics in partnership with STR, and as a reminder, STR is the organization that collects all of the hotel occupancy data across the country, U.S. Travel, as well as other organizations. This is the most detailed forecast in our industry, and we have used it as a reference in reforecasting 2020 and forecasting 2021. As you see by the graph, April and May are the hardest impacted as hotel revenues slowly begin that upward trend. For 2020, it's forecasted that room revenues will be down 58% to 2019. And as we move into 2020, that upward trend slows, and room revenues are forecasted to be down about 21% to 2019. Based on where we are today and the forecast for 2021, the TBIT Advisory Council is recommending the scope of services to reflect a projected 21% decrease in revenue collections compared to 2019. Once the COVID-19 stabilizes and recovery begins, Q3, Q4-ish, the TBIT Advisory Council will reconvene to review the 2020 revenues and strategy to ramp up our programmatic marketing efforts and sales efforts to aid in the recovery and to finalize our 2021 goals. In the scope of services budget that you have in the packet, that looks like this. Typically, I'll tend to walk through, and I'm going to do that today as well on a high level. So if you want to take a look at the scope of services, it is important to note that the scope of services is our best estimate on the best forecast at this time, but we never spend more than what is collected. At a high level, you can see that we will continue to focus on the leisure market. As we closely watch travel sentiment, all indications are that leisure travelers will be looking to stay closer to home, and drive markets will be the first to recover. And this will bode well for Wichita, as we will continue to market to those visitors in the drive range. From a budgeting perspective, we recommend allocating just over $1.6 million for the leisure efforts. This is approximately 90% of what was in the approved 2020 plan. In order to maintain a strong leisure presence and the timing of group recovery, we have reduced the group spend, with the lion's share of that reduction coming from the Strategic Event Commitments Fund, as we have sufficient funds right now to utilize as necessary. So overall, you'll see the group spend is down to $480,000 versus the $980 that was originally approved for 2020. In addition, we've made reductions in the personal admin as well as the research and ROI line items. So overall, the scope of service budget is $2.45 million. This is down 21% to our 2019 actuals, which is again is in line with our most recent forecast. And it's also down 26% to what was originally approved in the 2020 budget. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dante. And again, there's a quick look at what I just reviewed on the scope of services. Thank you.
As Susie mentioned, the leisure marketing and group sales efforts outlined in the 2021 scope of services are funded through T-bid revenues. The economic impact of both leisure marketing and group sales will be determined in late 2020. Adjustments will be made accordingly. If projections change or collections are less than anticipated, city staff will work closely with Visit Wichita to make those adjustments. The recommended action is that the City Council receive, approve, and file the Tourism Business Improvement District 2021 Scope of Services and Budget. With that, I, along with Susie Santo, are available for questions.
Questions or comments? Questions for the conferee? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more of just a suggestion. Could be a silly one, but as you all are supporting our partners in this, which I think is great, maybe it might be an idea also to promote potentially like a staycation, so we can get folks here in Wichita to maybe get a room night in the hotel. Once all of this is kind of over with and folks are safely coming out, folks may want to just get away and not have to clean their house and all of that. So maybe just a day in a local hotel could be a benefit.
Absolutely, that is a fantastic thought. Again, just to try to encourage residents to get out and support all the travel and tourism partners. And I think many folks will be ready to do just that. So thank you for that suggestion.
Other comments or questions about this item? Ms. Santos, I've had people reach out to me who wanted more details on how the public dollars are spent through Visit Wichita. My understanding is that it's a bit complex, where there is some information that would jeopardize, I think, your ability to compete with other markets by showing pretty much the playbook that you utilize against markets like Oklahoma City, or there's other information that might be more beneficial for those who want to dig more into the numbers. Would you be opposed to a transparency committee of 3 members of the council who can work with you between now and when your final budget is approved to come to an agreement on some of the stuff that could be released?
I'm sure happy to work with the city staff and circle back on that. Again, you're absolutely right. As we've been asked that question, putting us at a competitive disadvantage is something we don't want to do for Wichita. You're right, that's opening the playbook. And again, we have been following the opinion previously issued by the county's district attorney. I'm happy to circle back with the city manager and provide whatever information is needed.
Excellent. My goal is to, myself and also Councilmember Fry already sit on your board and possibly appoint a third person to work with you either before or after our meetings with our constituents to perhaps talk about what I think information people are looking for, while also making sure you guys stay competitive. So would you be in support of a addition to the recommended action that would create such a committee? That would work directly with you, of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? With that, I would make a motion to receive, approve, and file the Tourism Business Improvement District 2021 Scope of Services with an amendment to the recommended action to form a transparency committee with 3 members to create a policy to be presented and voted on or before the next budget is approved for Visit Wichita. For that committee, I would like to appoint Councilmember Fry, Councilmember Bluebog, and myself to that committee, and that would be, I guess, my motion. Is there a second?
Can you repeat the motion?
Of course.
Clerk or whoever. Sorry.
Sure, but the Vice Mayor jumped on first, so Vice Mayor Clayco. Go ahead. Repeat the motion. So it is staff's recommended action with an amendment to form a transparency committee with 3 members to create a policy that will be presented and voted on or before the presentation of the full budget for Visit Wichita. Pretty much what I just discussed and received the support of from Ms. Santos. I wanted to make that into a motion so that we can create policy that would allow more transparency without allowing our competitors to see the playbook that they're utilizing to attract business over other cities. And I was going to point you to it because of your background in finance, as well as myself and Fry, because we're already on the Visit Wichita Committee. So that was the gist. Council member or Vice Mayor Claycomb.
My only question, Mayor, is if Councilmember Fry and Councilmember Blubaugh are willing to do that. I just hadn't. Okay, thank you. Then I will second the motion.
Excellent. No, you're right. Actually, I haven't had a chance to ask Councilmember Fry. Apologize. I figured he's on the committee, and then I was going to bump into him, but then I got a little sidetracked looking for some of my documents. Anyways, Councilmember Fry, do you agree to?
Yes, thank you.
Of course, and I did have a chance to ask Councilmember Blubaugh. So with that, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on said motion? If none, clerk will open the rolls. Members will cast their ballot. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2020 Cultural Facilities Improvements.
Welcome, Ben.
Hi, good morning. Ben Nelson, Public Works and Utilities for the record. Today we're recommending initiation of $300,000 of transient guest tax funding that is budgeted for 2020 in the CIP. This is part of an annual recurring program budget that we have every year in the CIP, where we use these funds as an ongoing renewal and rehabilitation and replacement of aging building components in our city-owned cultural arts facilities. This project, along with all other CIP projects, was reviewed in the last month by city staff, and because it's entirely driven by maintenance of existing assets as well as the safety of building occupants, was recommended as a project that should proceed as planned. So this project was not on the list of potential holds that you got at your CIP retreat last month. If this is approved, almost all of the funding would be dedicated to the Kansas Aviation Museum. We've had some water leaks at that facility that we want to get on top of so it doesn't incur any additional costs from water damage. To do that, we would perform a partial roof replacement, and we would also be performing some masonry repairs and tuck pointing on the exterior of the facility. Any leftover funding would be mostly dedicated toward our upgrading some fire alarms at multiple cultural arts facilities to get them on cellular connectivity to ensure long-term communications operability into the future. And that's the conclusion of the presentation. I'll stand for questions.
Are there comments or questions on the current item? See none. With that, I will make a motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the project, adopt the bonding resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there is no discussion on said motion, the clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. The result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Nice job, Ben. Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much.
Water Conservation 2020 Rebate Program.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Penny Feist, Public Works and Utilities. Today, staff is recommending that we get approval for the 2020 rebate program, which is a part of our long-term water conservation effort. As you can see on the left, we've had a rebate program in place for a number of years. And in the most recent years, we've allocated about $100,000 for this program. The program helps us achieve a 0.35 conservation rate each year, which helps us in the long term reduce our annual water demand to meet our current water supply resources. The rebate program has 8 devices that City of Wichita water customers can apply for that will either reduce their indoor or outdoor usage. The pie chart on the right there shows you that over the years, our top 3 most purchased items for rebate have been toilets, dishwashers, and washing machines. In addition to that, we also have irrigation controllers, rain barrels, urinals, and dual flush kits. The program that we're recommending today is similar to the programs that we've offered in the past. The eligibility requirements remain the same. To be eligible, you have to be a City of Wichita Water customer. You're eligible for up to 5 rebates per year. We have a website, savewichitawater.com. It would include our application. It has a list of eligible devices, the make and model of those, and how much the rebate would be if approved. We're recommending that the rebates be retroactive back to January 1st. And also, if customers submitted an application in December of 2019, we had many applications that came in around the time that funding was exhausted. We'd like to include those applications as well. This is giving the customers a benefit. We've delayed bringing this to council due to COVID impact, but we want our customers who have already purchased these devices to remain eligible. So next steps would be to approve the 2020 rebate program. We're also going to increase our public outreach and social media campaign. We have a social media list of messages that we'd like to push so that everyone knows the everyday actions that you can take to reduce your own water usage at home. The SaveWichitaWater.com website has undergone some updates, including an online application to make it easier for citizens to apply, and hopefully makes it a little bit faster for the approval process as well. With that, the staff recommended action is to approve the 2020 Water Conservation Rebate Program, and I can stand for any questions.
Are there questions on the item? Any discussion? Seeing none, with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the 2020 Water Conservation Rebate Program. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. If there's no discussion on the motion, clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Overestimate bid, change order limit adjustment, supplemental design agreement number 4, and funding for improvements to West Street, Harry to Kellogg.
Good morning, Mayor and Council members. Gary
Morning.
Jansen, Public Works and Engineering again. The item before you this morning has multiple components related to improvements to West Street from Harry to Kellogg. And I'll talk through each one here in just a moment. Just as a reminder, this project will improve West Street from Harry to Kellogg, expanding it to 5 lanes, providing drainage improvements and additional pedestrian access. The community investment plan has identified West Street in particular from Kellogg all the way to 47th Street South as being prime for industrial and commercial growth. There's already heavy commercial freight traffic in the area. This will provide better accommodations, larger turning radiuses, and easier access for those commercial truck and freight vehicles. On March 26th of this year, the project was bid for construction with all of the bids exceeding the engineer's estimate. So the first part of this item today is to ask the council to approve the overestimate bid. This is a complex project for many of the reasons I just discussed. Keeping the commercial freight traffic moving through construction creates issues with phasing. We do our best to estimate these costs, but sometimes contractors may see something that we don't. The current climate we are starting to see is creating some uncertainty in pricing in parts of the construction market, including with vendors and material suppliers. And so we think that contributed some to this bid, but we're just under 6% over the estimate. We're also asking for an increase in the change order limit to 4% of the bid. This is standard for larger projects like this. It increases the staff authority level without impacting the budget. And then the third item is to approve supplemental design agreement number 4 with our design consultant Trans Systems for inspection of the project. We have lost some inspection staff recently, mostly through retirement. And with trying to leave those positions open for now, we are able to utilize the consultant, as we do with development work, quite often to supplement our staff, and this will work well. The estimated cost of $450,000 for Trans Systems services is within the range that we would have expected for our own staff to do the same type of work. To accommodate all of this and not just the overage on the bid, because the right-of-way costs for this project were a little bit higher than we expected. The development time was a little bit longer than we expected, so it took more staff time. We were requesting waiver of policy 2 for transfer of $550,000 to this project from East Kellogg Savings. We expect that to be the last transfer from that project. With that, I've got a long list of recommended actions for the council to approve the revised budgets, approve acceptance of the lowest bid, waive City Council Policy Number 2 regarding the use of project savings to allow transfer of the funds, adopt the amending resolutions, authorize the necessary signatures, increase the change order limit, and approve supplemental agreement number 4. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Questions or discussion? Seeing none, with that, Chair recognizes Councilmember Blubog.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I appreciate all the work that staff and everyone's done on this. This has been a project we've been working on for several years. The state of Kansas has been involved here and has let us know that this is an important corridor for the entire state. This industrial corridor serves us very well, and we appreciate all the support here. So I would like to take the recommended action to approve the supplemental design agreement number 4, change order limit adjustment and revised budgets, waive the city policy number 2 regarding the use of the project savings, and adopt the amending resolutions.
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there's no discussion on said motion, the clerk will open up the rolls. Members will cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Water Service Area Agreement with Rural Water District Number 4, Pike Addition.
Mayor and council members, Gary Jansen, one more time with the item before you is a water service agreement with Rural Water District Number 4, specifically for Pike Addition. This is in West Wichita in District 5. I'll show you a map in just a moment. But this is a new residential development, approximately 330 new properties within the development. The area was annexed by the city in January of 2019. The Pike Addition plat is located within Rural Water District Number 4 service area, but they're unable to provide necessary fire flows. In addition, the developer has specifically requested city services, which we see this is something that we're going to see more often, which I'll talk about in just a moment as the city continues to expand. The proposed agreement before you today is expected to be a standard for future Rural Water District negotiations, at least as far as service area is concerned. This map is a little bit hard to see the details, but the gray or blue area is the Rural Water District 4 boundaries. This has been a challenge over the years in us working with the rural water districts to make sure we knew where their boundaries were, but we basically rely on them to track that. North is up on this map. Just to give you some idea where the Rural Water District 4 expands from 37th Street North all the way down to south of Clearwater and out west of Goddard. This is somewhat similar to Rural Water District 2, which is farther north of the city. We are currently working with Rural Water District 3 in the southeast portion of the city and the county, and then Districts 1 and 5 are northeast. As the rural water districts have the legal right to serve these areas, but not always the facilities or the capacity, the city then negotiates, and this has been done in different ways over the years. Previously, prior to combining our Public Works and Utilities departments, the Water Utilities Director completed most of these negotiations. It seemed like we had a kind of a gap over the years in development that we weren't encroaching too far into the rural water districts, but now it's come back to that point, and I'll talk about that more in just a moment. But we need to negotiate a fair price with the rural water district to allow annexation of these areas into the city and to allow city services to be provided to the same areas, with all costs being recovered in some manner from the development itself. The rural water districts are afforded compensation potentially in 3 different ways. One is to purchase the right to serve the area, which we are discussing today and is probably the most prevalent. The second is if they have infrastructure that would now become obsolete, which they do not have here. There are some rural water district areas where they have infrastructure that serves an area already, and that would no longer be of use to them. So effectively, we have to purchase that asset. And then the third part of that is the customers or the units themselves. So effectively, we need to negotiate the right to serve and then to purchase their physical assets and customers. Again, we're only focused on the first one today, but in the future, these others may come into play. We've had recent discussions with the development community, Wichita Area Builders Association. As of right now, development is continuing on a pretty steady trend. There is interest, especially among the larger developers in town, to extend into these areas beyond the current city limits. So this will become a bigger issue for us, and we will have more agreements we expect to come in front of the city council. This shows the Pike addition specifically and the 330 lots I talked about. This is on the north side of Maple between 151st Street West and 167th Street West. There seems to be a lot of interest in this development already, and we have worked with the developer to move it forward as fast as we can. Past practices have been to compensate the service territory by paying a cost per acre. This particular plat is 160 acres. We started down that path, looking to negotiate with Rural Water District 4 a cost per acre. It's kind of a challenge to look at a fair market value for service territory, because that's not something any of us do on a regular basis. We happened to speak with Rural Water District 5 while this was going on for future development in the northeast part of the city. They provide an example they have with the city of Andover that provides comparable compensation. It requires no cost up front for anyone, including the city. In the past, we would have made a one-time payment based on the per acreage cost that we agreed to, and then the city would recover that cost every time a service connection was made. That can take a considerable length of time. It works, but it's not ideal. So the newer model, I call the newer model that we are hoping to move forward with and asking the council for approval today, specifically on Rural Water District 4, requires no upfront cost to the city. Payment to the Rural Water District will be a 5% surcharge on base and water consumption charges added to the monthly bill after initiation of service, and that surcharge would be on every single water service for 20 years. To give you some idea what that looks like monetarily, the average consumption cost and base fee, 5% of that is $16.25 per month, and that's on 2019 rates. Obviously, this would be indexed as we go forward, and as our rates increase, those cost increases would apply. But the 330 lots and that $16.25 per month over 20 years is an estimated $107,000. That correlates to $669 an acre, again at 2019 rates. Our initial negotiation with them was an offer of $600 an acre, so we're pretty close to what we thought was a fair offer for the acreage compared to this base charge. This really works well. It adds some additional work for our department staff in capturing this and forwarding it onto the district, but we think this can work really well. Again, I mentioned we are working with Rural Water Districts 3 and 5 now for impending developments northeast and southeast, and we hope to be able to use this same model. With that, staff recommends the council approve the service area agreement with Rural Water District number 4 and authorize the necessary signatures, and I would stand for any questions.
Questions on the item? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gary, I just want to confirm, and I know it's in the staff report, but just for the record, these bills will not be going through the developer, will be going strictly to the customer and pass through from the city of Wichita, correct?
Correct. Just to each customer's water bill, yes. The developer will never see any costs associated with this, except for the fact of marketing their lots, that there's going to be a 5% add-on to the bills.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Other questions on the item? See none. With that, I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? See none. Clerk will open up the roll. Members cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. My apologies to the council member and District 5. I should have let you make that motion.
It's all good. Thank you.
Missed that last line there. Okay. Madam Clerk.
City of Wichita free transit service on Saturdays.
Good morning, Mayor.
Morning.
Vice Mayor, City Council members. Mike Tan, Director of Transit. We're here for discussion of fare-free Saturday transit service. We've been running a pilot for the last two Saturdays, I should say, with regards to this service. So wanted to give you an update on that, and then also request your permission to continue that service till the end of June. As we all know, due to the pandemic, many Wichita residents are without employment and have experienced reduction in either resources or a total job loss. Obviously, with those limited funds, the cost of transportation can be an additional barrier for families to access the resources that we all so desperately need at this time. Both our mayor and Councilmember Brandon Johnson have received requests from constituents for us to look at ways to deal with this issue for the impacted families and our citizens as a group. In an effort to reduce the potential barriers and provide access and mobility opportunities during this pandemic, Wichita Transit is proposing to provide free transit services to improve access to the resources that families need, and propose the free transit service will be provided on Saturdays through the end of June. This service, as I mentioned, has already been provided for the last 2 weeks. For a little bit of comparison, prior to the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, our Saturday ridership was close to almost 3,000 rides per Saturday, which is roughly 50% of what we normally receive during the course of the week. When the stay-at-home order was issued, we started to see almost immediately a drop in ridership on Saturdays and across the board, quite frankly. And it continued to go down as we experienced farther into the stay-at-home orders. We reached a low of a little over 900 trips on the last Saturday before we implemented free ridership. So as I mentioned in the document, we had about, let me go back. So we can show what we had. We had a 45% reduction in our ridership, but actually the last 2 weeks that it's been free, we've actually exceeded that 1,159 number by another 300. So we're up to almost 1,500 trips on the 2 Saturdays that we offered the free service. So obviously it's been very, very effective in what it's been able to do. This service will be provided through the CARES funding that Wichita Transit received. And that has already been verified with the FTA that is applicable, that anything that we do with regards to these types of services is applicable to that CARES funding. So we will be reimbursed for the free fares that we would be providing. So with that, I would like to recommend, the staff would like to recommend the City Council approve Wichita Transit to continue providing free transit service through Saturday, June 27th, 2020. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions or discussion on a topic? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, at the agenda review on Friday, I asked the question about possibly a weekday that we might be able to do this, especially since the CARES funding is covering this revenue. Why wouldn't we also consider a weekday?
Actually, the city manager and myself have had a number of ongoing discussions with regards to how potentially we could roll out things like that. It is very dynamic. Obviously, our buses are socially distanced, so that reduces the number of people that we can transport on each individual bus. So during the weekday, that brings a number of things to bear. But I think the city manager and myself will be developing some plans that we can bring forward that hopefully accomplish what it is you'd like to see.
Because I really like the idea of this project, and the Saturday is a great option, but with so many other businesses not open on the weekends, it seems to, if we could do a weekday, that would be great.
as Mike said, we
Yeah,
are.
and we've had some requests from people that obviously call our offices, and that is one of the things is as the stay-at-home orders start to be relaxed, more and more destinations that people are going to have to get to start to become a requirement, and a lot of those, as you mentioned, are only open during the week. So we're hoping we can bring a plan forward for your approval that meets those requirements, but also make sure that we protect the people that ride the buses as well.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, just to give an example, Mike had talked about Tuesdays being our lightest weekday, and we looked at that. But if you go ahead and maintain the appropriate distancing to keep people safe on the bus, and then you look at the number of riders we typically have, you probably couldn't get any, if I remember, Mike, you couldn't get any more than 12 people on the bus, on one of our regular buses. And so then we'd be squeezing people out and making it difficult to provide service. So that's why we're gonna look at some other alternatives.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that obviously the CARES funding gives us a lot of options, and with the number of groups that are out there for public transportation, almost on a daily basis, there's options that are being presented. So as Bob and I have an option to review those situations as they come up, and as CDC rules and how things are adjusted, I'm quite sure that we're going to be able to adjust as we move forward, and hopefully be able to meet the requirements of both what the CDC says, but also to provide as much potential opportunity for transit operations or transit options for our people that we can.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. And Mike, thank you to you and your staff. One thing that I did want to applaud is that y'all are being incredibly adaptive, which we know is important during uncertain times such as this. I did receive an email from a constituent about maybe 10 days, 2 weeks ago, that just questioned how the bus system, transit system was being cleaned and to make sure that we're using all precautions during this time. And you gave a really outstanding response to that email. And as people are moving around the city more and going to rely on transit to do that, would you mind maybe just highlighting some of the exceptional precautions that you're taking so that people know it is safe to ride transit?
Certainly. I would be remiss if I didn't say how valuable all of the transit employees are to providing the service that that is out on the street today. They come to work every day. They're on the front lines. They're dealing with customers. They're dealing with the pandemic, obviously. They're dealing with the normal stresses that they do. And every single employee over at Wichita Transit has impressed me immensely on how well they conduct their jobs every single day. What we do is our buses are disinfected every night when they come in. They are also disinfected at the transit center when they come in between their trips and their routes. They all report back to the transit center. So we have staff down there that are constantly wiping down all of our buses, all of our fare boxes, all of our facilities that are down in the transit center area, but also our administrative offices. We have a deep cleaning crew that works every weekend that deep cleans all of the buses. We've put protective plastic shields for our operators between them and the fare box area. We also have our buses have clearly marked seats that are available for passengers, and then seats that are not available for passengers due to social distancing. So we've had a lot of good feedback from our people in order to be able, or our customers in order to do that. And then, as I said, as drivers, if they report anything, we immediately switch the buses out. And that's one of the options that we have available to us with no school. We do have extra equipment that's available, so that may help us as we move through different options in order to provide more service and need more on particular routes. So, but the facility, the staff have done an absolutely amazing job at keeping our facilities and our equipment very, very clean and sanitized. And we're going to continue that for as long as we have to do it.
Thank you to you and your team. And I've talked to Mr. Layton about this. We're always looking for good stories and heroes during this. And we obviously praise our police and fire, as we should, for being amazing professionals in our community as first responders. But I think some of the unsung heroes are also going to be recognized when this is over as transit and our transit operators for making sure that people can get where they need to get not only at low cost or no cost, but also safely. So again, thank you to you and your team for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussions on the item? See none. Would Councilmember Johnson like to make the motion? Given that you were part of the discussion to make this happen.
Yeah.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I would just simply move, thought you were going to do this. I would move that we approve Wichita Transit to provide free transit services on Saturdays through June 27th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor. There's no discussion on the motion. The clerk will open the rolls. Members cast their vote. The result is 7 yeas to 0 nays. The motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, Inc. Food Program.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Sally Stang with the Housing and Community Services Department.
Morning,
The
Sally.
item I have for you today is a food program sponsored by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. COVID-19 has impacted the health, safety, and economic stability of Kansans, especially our senior population, who are at highest risk of poor outcomes or death when exposed to COVID-19. Councilmember Becky Tuttle contacted me regarding an opportunity with Blue Cross Blue Shield to provide funding to help serve this high-risk population. The grant will cover the cost of food distribution in all 4 senior public housing properties for 8 weeks, so the high-risk senior residents living there may reduce their risk of exposure while maintaining access to nutritious food. The Wichita Housing Authority reached out to 5 different food distributors in the area to gauge interest in supplying and delivering the food boxes. Only one vendor with proper capacity, MEI Foods, expressed interest in the program implementation. Grant funding provided to the city of Wichita from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas in the amount of $37,562.40 will be sufficient to provide approximately 180 seniors bi-weekly food boxes for the duration of the 8-week program. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas is also making it available just over $2,500 for transit if we have difficulty in delivery. MEI Foods will supply and provide contactless delivery of the boxes at a rate of $52.17 a box. Each box will contain 2 to 3 pounds of ground beef, 5 pounds of potatoes, oranges, apples, onions, bags and boxes of pasta, beans or rice, cans of vegetables, and some canned meat. There's no impact to the general fund, and we are recommending that the council authorize the memorandum of agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas for the receipt of the grant funds and to approve the contract with MEI Foods for the provision of food boxes and authorize the necessary signatures. And I wish to thank Councilmember Tuttle so much for bringing this opportunity to us and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas for providing the funding. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sally. Are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to also thank Councilmember Tuttle for her work on this, and you as well, Sally. This is a great opportunity for our seniors, and I'm really appreciative of it, so thank you for that.
Councilmember Tuttle.
I just want to especially thank Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. This is just a fantastic opportunity for us to serve some of our most vulnerable in a really unique and creative way. And access to food, and especially access to healthy food, is something that I've been passionate about for almost 10 years and worked diligently in the community. So this just seemed like a great opportunity. But I also need to give great kudos to Director Stang, to Sally. During a very hectic and crazy time, I reached out to her and asked her to do one more thing, which isn't always what you want to do, but there's an expression that if you want something done, ask a busy person. And Sally took charge of this and really did a fantastic job. So thank you for making this come to fruition. I did the easy part, you did the hard work. So thank you.
Councilmember Clayco.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I also want to say thank you to Councilmember Tuttle, to Director Stang, and to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. All of these properties are in District 6, and so all of the residents live in District 6, and so I really appreciate Blue Cross and Blue Shield for helping out our seniors in this area. Thank you.
there any further discussion with the item? See none, I will recognize Councilmember Tuttle for a motion.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And I robustly recommend that we authorize the memorandum of agreement with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas Incorporated for the receipt of grant funds and approve the contract with MEI Foods for the provision of food boxes and authorize the necessary signatures.
One moment, I'm sorry. With that, I believe that I needed to, we had a comment to be read into the record. That was for this item, is that correct? Yes.
Second.
So can we, can we make, can the maker of the motion make an amendment to also accept the comments by Ashley Fass that was sent to us to be read into the record along with her motion?
No motion would be required. They can just be read into the record or incorporated as you wish.
There's no record, no motion needed? Excellent. My apologies for interrupting. There was a motion and a second. Any comments on said motion? See none.
Do we need to read?
If it's your wish, we can read them into the record.
I believe the process that we established was that they would simply be part of the record when we received them by 8 o'clock this morning. So we're fine.
So yeah, before we started, I asked if I had to read these. I was told no, that I had to make a motion so that they would be accepted into the record. Now they're just in the record. We're good. Okay. With that, I apologize, Councilmember Tuttle. I believe you have a motion on the floor.
It's been seconded by.
And it's been seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Is there any discussion on said motion? See none. With that,
I do think that Councilmember Johnson was the seconder, or was it?
I believe it was seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Madam Clerk.
I just did that so the discussion can happen.
Madam Clerk, if you would please note that Councilmember Johnson was actually the second on this for perpetuity.
Noted. Thank you.
Perfect. Members cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
CARES Act grants, Wichita Dwight D. Eisenhower National and Colonel James Jabara Airports.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Jean Zogelman with the airport. The CARES Act has provided a section of $10 billion for airports that have been affected by COVID. The funds can be used for any lawful purpose that airport revenues can typically be used. The expectation is the primary use of these funds will be for O&M expenses, including personnel, along with debt service reimbursement. As a condition of accepting these funds, airports agreed to maintain the employment that they had of FTEs being paid on March 27th of 2020, that they maintain 90% of that employment through the end of 2020. The FAA produced a calculation to develop the amounts that go to each airport based on what was in the act as passed by Congress. The result of that is slightly over $11 million for Eisenhower Airport and nearly $160,000 for Jabara Airport. The law does allow us to pool that so that it can be used to the best use in the airport system as a whole. We are prohibited from using it for any expenses prior to January 20th of 2020, and we could have 4 years in which to use those funds. Because this is part of the CARES Act, it is 100% federal money, and there is not matching funds related to it. The process that the FAA handled with this was to send us the applications in an electronic form for them to be signed, along with the grant agreements, an electronic form to be signed both by the Director of Airports and the attorney, Jay Hinkle. Those have been received, and because of the accelerated implementation schedule for that, they have been returned back to the FAA to receive those funds. So therefore, our recommendation is that you ratify those actions, both the applications and the agreement, and approve the acceptance of funds. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments on the item? Seeing none, with that, I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to ratify the grant applications, the grant agreements, and approve the acceptance of funds. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by the vice mayor. Clerk will open the rolls. If there's no discussion on the said motion, members will cast their vote. With 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Limited Airport Layout Plan Update, Colonel James Jabara Airport.
Good morning, John Oswald, Airport Engineering and Planning Manager. Today I'm going to present the airport layout plan update for Colonel James Jabbar Airport. Can you help with that? Okay. Nope, not there yet. Thank you. Background, the current master plan and airport layout plan was published in early 2005 using 2003, 2004 data. FAA planning regulations have changed since that time. Plus, development has occurred, leaving less land available, which requires a professional approach to look at options for future growth. Maximum study cost is $296,590. A consultant through the selection process was chosen to be Kaufman Associates. Additional funds of $150,000 is available this year only from another Kansas airport that was not able to use their federal non-primary entitlement grant funds. The FAA, through the CARES Act, the FAA AIP grant for this year is 100%, thus leaving amount of Air Authority pays out of pocket for this project of $0. Recommendation to approve the project budget, consultant agreement, grant application, acceptance of funds, and authorize the Director of Airports to sign all documents related to the grant. I'll stand for questions.
Is there questions on the item? See none. With that, I will move to take staff's recommended action to approve the project budget, the contract grant application, and acceptance of funds, and authorize the Director of Airports to sign all documents related to the grant. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there's no discussion on the motion, then members will cast their votes. With the result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Are there appointments from the council members? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have any appointments. I just had 2 comments. One, I'm excited about the food program again, going back through the package, seeing that MEI Foods is the company that will be working. MEI Foods is also the company seeking to open a grocery store in District 1. So glad to see them getting involved in that way. And then 2, I just want to acknowledge we all had received a letter from the Council of Elders that have been supported by the Wichita Branch NAACP, the Greater Wichita Ministerial League, Wichita Urban Professionals, and Wichita State University African American Faculty and Staff Association, as well as all of the African American elected officials here in Wichita, just discussing the needs and concerns of the community as we reopen. Most importantly, looking at access to testing. I personally have received a couple emails regarding one of our clinics that was administering a antibody test rather than the swab test, and the swab test is most important right now to people who actually had symptoms. So I reported that over to the county, but just wanted to make the point that that list did come in. That was one of the main concerns, is access to testing, making sure that the testing was free, access to personal protective equipment, because masks are necessary when we go out in public, face shields, all of that. Also a need for transparent, accurate data. The county dashboard is great, but it doesn't have data broken down by zip code, and that was one point they wanted to make, as well as support for small businesses as they open up in a responsible manner, just making sure they had access to PPE and provisions for parents and such who have children that would normally be in school, but now that school's closed and they are going to go back to work, just some form of support and efforts there. So just wanted to acknowledge the reception of that, and I think that went out to all governmental bodies. Thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind everyone in the community that May is National Bike Month. It's something that we have celebrated annually for quite a few years here in our community, and there's a group of concerned citizens and community partners like Bike Walk Wichita and the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita and who had been working on this for several months. Some things are still going to be able to come to fruition, but I've said several times there's been so many changes during this whole pandemic, but one of the positive changes I've seen is I don't think I've ever seen as many people walk and bike as I have recently, which has been great. And hopefully it'll be some habits that people will continue. But usually during May, we're able to celebrate Bike to School Day. We're able to celebrate Bike to Work Day. Some of those things will be suspended, but we'll try and do the best we can to either celebrate them later or celebrate in some way. Also, May is always Bike Share ICT's birthday, so something that we're excited to see hopefully reopen once we have less concerns about safety. But just a reminder to the community that walking and biking, and especially biking, are safe and reliable forms of transportation and not just recreation. So maybe this will be a good time with the nice weather in the next few days for people to get out and take a ride and remember to celebrate National Bike Month. So thank you.
Other comments or board appointments for members of the council? Sina and I have some appointments to make. I would like to appoint a small business advisory council to the mayor for a term of 3 months, made up of 10 members within our community who are small business owners. Those people whose names I'll likely mispronounce, at least the last names, but we'll be happy to give the list to the clerk afterwards, are Kara Kaufman, Joey Kate Laurie, Janelle Robertson, Eddie Sandoval, Emily Shanka, Amber Beck, Nathan Jackal, Fee Vonderland, Pam Spillman Edmondson, and Felicia Despain. So with that, any discussion on those appointments? Councilmember Claycomb.
I just have a question, Mayor. So the purpose of that committee, is this a new committee?
It will be.
And so the purpose?
The purpose is during the COVID-19 crisis, the reopening of our economy, it's more important than ever for the needs of small businesses to have direct access to the council when it comes to the creation of policy. Therefore, although this council would have been created even before the COVID crisis, just as a way of community outreach and engagement, this is particularly targeted with these owners towards industries that have been deeply affected with the crisis. The 3-month term is in place in hopes that every quarter we will have new people serving and continuation of fresh ideas.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions on this new council? Council Member Tuttle.
Again, I think it's a great idea. I appreciate always the more community input that we can have. One maybe recommendation or suggestion is if you would be willing to accept potential small businesses from each of our districts, so that way we can make sure that we're getting a really wide scope and representative from all areas and factions of our community. That would be greatly appreciated. So great job and good luck.
Thank you. And I hope in the next 3 months, the next council, we can have some nominations for people's districts. For this particular one, these nominations are generated from business leaders in the community, particularly targeted at those who are very much impacted by COVID-19. But I do hope that we can have more district representation as we move forward, of course.
I have one more.
Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I think also, in light of the letter that we received from the Council of Elders, I think some of their concerns were for their small businesses also, so representation, we may be able to wrap that into there too at some point, so.
Of course, and again, the purpose of the 3-month constant revitalization of this committee is to be responsive to changes in the market so that we can make sure that we have representation, but particularly representation sometimes will be based on industry representation will sometimes be based on demographics. So I think that moving forward, we're on the same page as far as ensuring that. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Recommendation, but no need for appointment, just to involve Wayne Bell with the SBA, with your committee, because he'll be able to probably answer a lot of those questions about funding and other support.
Excellent. We'll meet afterwards, and perhaps if he's not officially appointed to the committee, maybe he can sit in and be someone who can advise.
Yep.
Any more questions or concerns? See none. With that, I will make the motion to accept the creation of the Small Business Advisory Council to the Mayor with the members mentioned, the 10 members mentioned as members of that committee. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Thank you. With that, if there's no further discussion, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Members will cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. We are adjourned. Should ask, we don't have an executive session. No? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you.